Hey,
Hey,
how's the
Brian.
internet treating you?
Yeah, great. Actually, there's some
Okay.
drama, so I fixed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think I'm gonna wait 1 or 2 more minutes. I'm watching the um uh list of participants. I'm gonna wait a couple more minutes for a few more people to join up, and then we go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
But I can drive the chair slides this time, no problem. Thanks for putting them together.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, we've got 13 in the room, and we're 2 minutes after. Let's go ahead and get started. Uh, Hi, welcome to the third SCONE virtual interim meeting. For those of you who have not been to one of these yet, note well, everything that you say here is an IETF contribution. There are IETF policies in effect on all IETF contributions, including IPR policies, the privacy policy, and the code of conduct. Note really well, these are all of the IETF activities are intended for professional collaboration and networking. There are guidelines for conduct, anti-harassment policy, and procedures. So where are we in sort of the journey of our working group? We have set up a couple of work streams, semantic and context and framing and syntax. We will spend most of today on the second work stream. So this is basically looking at a combined protocol proposal named Trone. Have created there is one presentation / discussion a bit later on the semantic content and the applicability statement, but we're going to start with the combined protocol proposal. We do have now a working group GitHub repository for that combined protocol proposal. We will spend most of today's meeting looking at issues and pull requests in that repository. We are having sort of like regular cadence interim meetings to drive progress in these work streams after Bangkok, before Madrid. We have planned 5 of these. We went ahead and planned these in advance to try and spread some of the time zone pain equally around, various parts of the world. I think everyone's going to have some meetings here that are not pleasant to attend, but we're trying to set it up so that we can sort of maximize the minimization of unhappiness. Let's put it that way. Not clear that we're going to actually need all 5 of these. The idea is that we can make a determination after each of these meetings whether we need the next one or we just sort of like skip to the following one. We will discuss that briefly at the end of this meeting. Yeah, we're going to talk about resolving issues on the combined proposal. I think we do have a goal to start a conversation here that we will take to the list about adopting this as a working group document. So we could do that before the next interim meeting. And we do have an update on use case and requirements, which will be the last part of the agenda. So like sort of, we'll start that like with the last 15 minutes of the agenda today. So with that, no discussion. I will turn this over to Marcus. Can you drive on the issue discussion on Chrome, please?
Yes, I can. And I just see, I get a bunch of buzzes in my phone, and I see it's Christian making a bunch of comments and stuff on the repository, but I see that he's not here. Maybe someone can ping Christian to see if he has forgotten that we actually have a meeting now, because he seems to be active on the repository at this particular moment. But I will try to share my screen, and we can look at kind of what we have done. We have merged some text already, and then we have a bunch of issues open. I think a lot of those issues contains discussions that we probably do not need to resolve before actually doing an adoption call. There's a lot of discussion there that is going to need working group consensus and so on. So, but yeah, let me see if I can, now I'm asking to share, I think. How does this work?
I just have to click the button, which I have clicked, I think. What? Grant screen?
All the slots for the requested media are already taken.
Oh, I have to. Okay. Now I can grant screen. There we go.
Okay, now, and I have to hope I can choose which screen. Yeah, okay, I can even choose Windows. That's good. Then let's go here. Let's try.
Actually, could I ask somebody else to mail Christian real quick? His mail provider and my mail provider have decided mutually that the other is a spammer.
Okay, so.
Thanks, Kazuo.
Maybe we start here. We can go through the issues. I just want to show what has been done. So there was a bunch of PRs, and a few of them have been merged already because we had extensive discussion. I just want to show very quickly what that was. The most important one was this initial attempt at adding version-dependent logarithmic rates. This is pretty much reshaping the document to reflect what we discussed in Bangkok. So now the document specifies that there are two versions. It specifies that the low 6 bits are used of the first byte are used for the rate signal field. And then it specifies that we're using these exponents like the ones we discussed. Of course, the working group can discuss further on if these are the right exponents and what ranges and do we really need two versions and so on. But this is pretty much reflecting what we discussed in Bangkok. There are some updates to the example pseudocode and so on as well. And there were some discussions, and this has been merged already. We think that this is very much in line with what we discussed there. So unless someone has comments on this, I want to move to some other issues and PRs. Right. Then let's do that. Okay, maybe one more commit that we also, one more PR that we just merged as well, just to show the previous Tron version had some text about expanding, that the network elements can expand datagrams. We noticed that that caused a lot of discussion in Bangkok. So what we decided to do now is just remove all that text, put that question into an issue, and don't say anything about it in the document that we go on, that we will propose for working group adoption. So instead we have an open issue to discuss this. So better than having any text on this topic. Right, and then if we go to the open issues that we have, there are quite a number of issues. We have, of course, the most important one down here is about the name of the protocol. If we're happy with, we decided to call it Tron as a combination of Train and SCONE. Is that a useful name or not? We can discuss later, but it's there. Then we have some old issues. I think some of the more important ones that we probably need to discuss, and we need to discuss whether they need to be resolved prior to publishing or doing a working group adoption, is this around network inserted Tron packets. We have a discussion on the time window. The protocol is not now sending explicit time windows. There are privacy considerations. There are some confusions about limits, rounding behavior when you convert. We have to discuss these and see which we think we need to resolve prior to adoption. And not sure which order we should take this. I don't know which one is more important than other ones. Maybe I'll just go from the top to the bottom. Or
can you sort them by number of comments, actually?
Yeah, that's probably, maybe that's, let me see. That's a total comments. That's a good idea. Okay, Tron with other protocols. Okay, that's actually an interesting question. Right now we're focusing on Quick. So maybe we start here. I wonder if Harald is on the call. That would have been useful. He is not. But basically the issue is that currently Tron is specified to work with Quick only, and that we do this by prepending data to a datagram. And he basically says that this is interesting for other use cases. Would it be possible, reasonable, impossible, etc., to do this as an ICE extension? And I guess what he proposes here is that, yeah, you could convey the same information as some form of extension to this, and then to ICE. Just clarifies the use case. Christian talks about that you could actually just insert some additional UDP packet with payload that looks like Quick, but it's actually not, and that should be sufficient for the network elements to observe this as a Tron packet, and it would be a useless packet to the receiver of the ICE packet. So it's an interesting discussion. I'm not sure this is something we need to resolve prior to adopting this document. I think this is something that we should keep in there, and we can consider whether we want to write some guidance for other protocols. But I think at this point, the working group is chartered to handle Quick primarily, and I think that's probably what we should keep focusing on. And I would like to see that this is an issue that can live on and then handle later. I don't know if there are opinions on that.
Go, Martin.
Yeah, like you said, we're chartered specifically to focus on Quick initially. So I would just say let's make sure we have extension points and just leave it alone from there.
Okay, sounds good. Let me go back to the list, unless there are more comments here. I see in the chat that Kazuo agrees.
Yeah, if we were going to spend more than 30 seconds on this, I would have put my chair hat on and said, like, yeah, not chartered to do this.
Good. Then we have another one with quite a lot of comments. I think this is an interesting one as well. It's a client-side explicit ACK for receipt of Tron packet. So this stems from one of the requirements in the requirements document that Sanjay and others are working on. Basically, the idea is that would it make sense to for endpoint who has received a rate signal to send something back to the network to indicate whether it is intending to act on this or not. So there, or rather, if you send something back, that's an indication that you will act upon it. So that's kind of a requirement, and there's some additional discussion then on that repository. There are some arguments for that it kind of helps. It kind of helps the network element to know whether it should change state into something more that it does based on knowledge or awareness that the endpoints probably are going to respect the Tron limits and so on. My comment on this particular, like, I understand the reasoning why they would like to do this, but my comment on this would be that I'm not sure that sending an explicit acknowledgement adds much more value than the value you already get by knowing that the endpoints are willing to participate in the Tron communication. Yes, you can get some packet back, but you will still need to monitor to understand whether the bitrate, if the client is, or if the application is self-regulating, the only way to know that for sure is by actually measuring the traffic. And regardless if you send an ACK packet back or not, I cannot fully trust that as a network element. So that would be my kind of criticism to this proposal, that I don't think it actually solves the thing they want to solve, and then it adds additional protocol mechanics to do something that yeah. So that was my point here, and I think Christian make a similar point. And there's some more comments here from Sanjay. Yeah, okay. I think the argument that the proponents for this is making that if you send an ACK, that gives the network element some more trust in that it can stop doing shaping, and then that the endpoints will enforce. But my comment to that is that we still cannot trust that ACK, so we still kind of have to resort to measurement and so on. But that's the argument that you bring some extra value here. And I see that there's a comment 9 minutes ago and 16 minutes ago, so there's a lot of discussion here. I don't know if Renji and Christian and Sanjay are on the call. It would be good to.
So Sanjay and Renji are on the call. Dan is in the queue. So let's go ahead and have a few minutes of discussion here.
Yeah, thank you. I will add a different dimension to the value of the acknowledgement, and that has to do with making the communication a bit more efficient. So if I know that I get a confirmation that the endpoint actually received the signal, then every time they will ask if the signal is still fresh, I can ignore that question, and this way I don't need to engage in that conversation. Basically, maintaining the freshness by basically. But if I don't have an acknowledgement, I don't know for sure if they actually got the signal, and this is just a different way of looking at that acknowledgement from an efficiency perspective. So just wanted to point this one out. Thank you.
Thanks.
Renji?
Yeah, so I guess the sort of like the reason that I added this proposal was that I wanted a clear way for the network element to switch from whatever its like in generic limiter is to a limiter that's specified with the SCONE window. I came up with this like explicit signal, but like if people agree that by signaling that you support SCONE, you should be able to follow this. I think I'm okay with that. I just need I just want like a clear indication of like for the element for the network element to switch off a limiter.
Yeah, exactly, and I understand that, and I think so basically as a potential network element Tron implementer here, I think I would not trust an ACK more than or rather, if I see SCONE's Tron support on a 5 tuple, I would allow to switch to the mode where you don't do throttling, because you have some idea that this flow will likely respect the Tron limits, SCONE limits, whatever we call them, bitrate limits, and then I will start measuring. And the only way to know that the limits are respected is through measurement. And I think it's fine to use the willingness to participate in Tron as a signal to enter that mode already from the start, you can quite quickly determine that this flow is not conformant, and then you can fall back to throttling if you so wish. So I don't think the ACK helps with anything in that regard. Would have to think more about Dan's comment to see if there are other uses of the ACK. Maybe we can discuss that more on the issue. But for this particular case, I think seeing the Tron support is signal enough, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I think your point makes sense too.
Sanjay?
Sorry, going off mute. So I think Dan did raise a good point, and I would urge Dan to note his comment on the GitHub so that it just doesn't get lost, because you did raise a good point. So we're struggling with this requirement also. On our side, on the requirements document, but I'm also compelled with the reasoning that Ranji has raised, and it's very valid that you have a 1 second window, and if the client, the endpoint has not adjusted yet on the bit rate ladder, then they might be overshooting, and then throttling may start. So as opposed to having the ACK, and network element would say that I'm going to wait until a longer window to decide whether or not I need to throttle it. So the network is not doing away with the measurement. They're still doing that part, but they're just allowing themselves to get a longer window to make sure that, let's see if in 20 megabits, in 20 seconds, if the flow is up to, if they're accepting 1 megabits per second, then they can wait for a 20-second window and see that is the client endpoint within the 20 megabits window. So that way, that acknowledgement helps network to just use a longer horizon before it enforces anything. So I think that's a valid point that I'm also struggling with as to how do you address that? Is the ACK the right place to help with that, or is there something else that helps?
Right, and I think that it is a valid point. I think that what signal do you need to start? Maybe change your measurement window and so on. I still think that the indication of willingness to participate in Tron is probably sufficient for that. And I think that the ACK, even if you get an ACK, you cannot trust that until you actually measure it. So you're back at square one. When you have Tron support indicated already, you can only validate that it's actually understood and respected by measurement. So you need to do measurement, like I said, you need to do measurement in both cases. So maybe the ACK gives you some level of increased confidence that there will not be overshoot, but I think it's still like, just in the worst case, it's still just an arbitrary packet, and anybody could send that regardless of their intention to actually respect the limit or not. So I think you're back to the same point. And then whether you as a throttler determine that you like what your policy is on when you enable or disable throttling, I mean, yeah, that in the end is just a policy decision, and I'm not sure the ACK helps very much there. At least not. I mean, the additional protocol cost for doing that is I wonder if that's solving enough problem to actually be worth it. That would be my.
Kazuma?
Right. So I agree with Marcus here, and I think one of the difficulties of using ACKs reliably is that, well, the return path could go through a different middlebox in some cases, and if that happens, you cannot really receive an ACK. So the ACK has to go back to the original sender and then send back through that, and it's become complicated and it's becoming fragile. So I prefer to not design things based on fragile paths.
Christian?
Good morning. I am concerned. I mean, I entered another PR about possible attacks against network elements. I am concerned about the mechanism in which tone packet sets state in the network elements, because those SCONE packets are very easy to forge. And so the more state you put in your network element as a result of the SCONE packet, of the tone packet, the more you are susceptible to those attacks. And I was working on the impression that SCONE was essentially stateless. That is, the information you get in SCONE reflects what is already decided by the network. I am concerned that this ACT discussion assumes that SCONE is stateful, is that the receiving a SCONE packet changes the state of the network. And that is not, I mean, I don't like that, because it has all kinds of implications on security, it has all kinds of implications on defense against denial of service attacks. And it's, I am very uneasy with that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
I would rather not have acknowledgement, and I would rather have advice in the text saying, hey, network elements, if you try to change the set of your network based on seeing SCONE datagrams, you are susceptible to a bunch of attacks that you probably don't want.
Yeah, that is a very valid point. That these are easy to forge. There is a risk of this changing the state of the network in unwanted ways.
And I don't hear anything. Did I lose the communication?
Am I?
We can still hear you. I can still hear both of you. I think.
Okay.
Yes. Christian has a split horizon, I think. So I did close the queue here because I want to make sure we get to other issues and PRs in the scrub. Marcus, what did you see as a is there like a conclusion here? I've taken notes in the thing, but like this sounded to me like we can leave this probably open for discussion. It's not not gating on adoption.
I fully agree. Yeah, I fully agree. I think this is a general issue. Like I think we can definitely keep this open. I don't see that this is important for adoption. Yeah, that I agree. We should probably set some some kind of labels on these issues. But
right.
But I agree with that.
I think Christian's point about like stateless versus stateful is probably a discussion that we should have also early on.
Yes. And I mean, that is an important discussion. Just one comment on that is that one of the intended use cases for SCONE Throne is that it allows networks to do away with the throttling as they do today and rely on self-regulation. That, of course, is something that kind of changes state in the network. We need to discuss this. We need to discuss potential attacks against that.
Right, exactly. Well, so that, I mean, that was the point I think that I heard Christian raising is like, hey, yeah, there are trade-offs if you do this. There are trade-offs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay, another interesting issue here. I think this is also something we probably can keep open, but it's good to have a look at it. So this is about the time window for suggested bitrate. So as the protocol is specified right now for the version that we hope to go in for adoption, there is no explicit communication of like an average window or anything like that. It would rather be a value that is encoded into the protocol, more or less. So what we have to do is probably write up some guidance. Like if you see a throughput advice, you should you should consider this time window. And then the question, of course, becomes, what is a reasonable time window to talk about in this protocol? And Renji opened this issue, he agrees that it simplifies things to have a fixed window, that we don't need to communicate different windows from different networks and so on. But what is a good value here? For instance, different video applications choose to buffer different lengths of videos during playbacks. For example, app A may buffer 10 seconds, while app B buffers 20 seconds. The 10-second windows will work for app A, not for app B. A 20-second window will work for both. So a flow that complies with a short window, complies with a short window, will also comply with a longer one. Exactly, yeah. So we should probably specify a longer window to accommodate different applications. That is an interesting comment. I kind of agree with that. And Kazuo agree and says that we probably have a good ballpark here of 20 seconds. There are some discussions on that. There are applications, real-time video applications, that care about the next 20 milliseconds. These are not ageless timescale buffering at all. But I think, Kazuo has a good answer here. There are two separate questions that we need to discuss, like what is the time window of the signal, like the bit rate that is being communicated. What is the time window of how this bit rate is measured, pretty much, and this goes back to how network elements measure conformance. And the other issue is how frequent these rate signals are sent. And yeah, these could be two separate questions that maybe the second pointer is more relevant for Harald's question. And then we have a comment 5 minutes ago. SCONE is intended for timeframes of multiple RTTs at a minimum, so 30 seconds or a minute to be a reasonable time frame. Yeah, this is an interesting discussion. My initial thinking on this was also like, yeah, we could probably have timeframes up to a minute, because this is to kind of measure conformance to a bitrate policy, and we want to give some slack here for endpoints to on how they transmit and fetch data, but overall we want to see that the rates are respected. So so we have 2 points here. One is that 20 seconds is probably a good starting point until we see something better. And Ian here comments that we could have it maybe even longer. I think this is a question that we can debate here, and I think, but it probably doesn't do much at this point. I think we need to pick a value right now for the one that we adopt, and then we need to come back to this discussion, maybe even through some experimentation and more hard thinking about this. But I don't think that this the exact value of the time window needs to be solved right now. I think we have in the current text we say 20 seconds. I think we can have a look at that or to see what we actually mention. If we're not mentioning anything, I think we should put in some value. And I agree with Kazuo that starting at 20 seconds there is probably a good starting point for this. And we can evolve, iterate on this as a working group if we have more informed discussions. Do people care about this issue right now, or should we just say that we?
Yeah, I saw that Ian jumped in and then jumped back out, so I think that he agrees with himself probably. I will take a note of what you just said. If I hear nothing else, it's like, let's choose a thing, head it at 20, and then come back to this later. Do you want to keep the issue open for later, or do you want to consider that closed with it?
I want to keep the issue open. I want to put a label on it saying that for later. We probably just want to set some labels on these issues saying that these are not for the for doing adoption.
Okay, I have made the comment on the resolution, which is a non-resolution.
Ian, thank you.
one quick question. Do we have an issue about how often you're supposed to send these? And this kind of goes back to Dan's point, which is like the signal could be good for a minute, but you're supposed to send it every 20 seconds because packet loss is real. Like I think we want to have the rate the information is transmitted at least twice as. Basically, we should be able to tolerate a packet loss, and like the system should largely work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to go back to what we already did in the PR that we merged. But in Bangkok, we basically we talked about the guidance we want to give is that because this protocol is now lightweight, it's easy to update. We want to give guidance along the lines of like send a Tron packet for every. Like if you're an HLS sender, like send a Tron packet for every video segment burst that you're transmitting, pretty much. Something along those lines. I mean, we could also say something like that the minimum frequency should be like 2 times of this window that we have, or something like that. I think that makes sense. We can probably open an issue on this as well, but.
I guess I don't understand why packet loss is relevant here, because like as the sender, I send a packet, I don't get any feedback, then like obviously I have stale information, you just send it to me. Like once after some timeout, I have to send it to me. I don't need to like send a bunch of packets at higher frequency just in case there's packet loss, because the signal is to myself, right? Or am I misunderstanding?
That's true if the signal changed, but I mean if it's the first time we receive the signal, maybe and you didn't have prior information, then it could make sense. Or if the rate changes potentially.
Yeah, Martin, you make a good point that if you're actually doing quick, like real quick, and you're not trying to shove this into some other UDP protocol, you would know the packet was lost and be able to proactively retransmit the SCONE along with the rest of the packet. You're right. But so yeah, maybe never mind the retransmit bit. But 20 seconds is probably
fine. Marcus, so question on this. So first, Anu from Meta. So I want to acknowledge this is important topic because this is important so that the network element and the caps, they have the common understanding of how this bit rate is measured. So this is an important topic. Regarding 20 second, I don't think enough discussion happened on this topic that we can agree that 20 second is the right value. So I kind of agree with Renji's comment and Jan's comment. So we have to consider different application behavior, and we are running some experiment. We will have some data maybe next interim or our subsequent interim. So are we keeping this issue open, or like?
Yeah, we're keeping it open here. I think so. We will take 20 seconds as a starting point for the document that we adopt, but we will keep the issue open so that it is an open issue for the working group to keep working on. And an adopted working group document is just a starting point. Yeah, I fully agree that we need to do maybe experimentation and more discussion to come up with a good value here. So this 20 seconds are in no way written in stone. It's just a good enough value for what we start off with here for the adopted document.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. Moving on. Privacy considerations when sending different Tron protocol versions. Right. So we have a proposed protocol design now, which is based on using 2 versions where the different versions express different ranges of bit rates. And the idea is that you alternate the sending of these 2 versions. That might have some privacy issues. I need to see the comment here. It's from Matt. So the draft currently recommends alternating between Tron 1 and Tron 2 versions without addressing the privacy implications. We should think about this more and at least add some consideration to the text to ensure network elements know Tron is supporting while minimizing information disclosure. One idea would be send at least 1 packet of each version initially, even if the application only operates in one range. Subsequently, prioritize sending the version most relevant. I think maybe to first understand, I'm not fully sure what the privacy issue is. I think maybe focusing on one version of the two might be a privacy issue because it says something of the range you're interested in, maybe. But if we're alternating,
that's the issue. It's like,
Yeah.
if you're in the low bit rate range, hey, you're a low bit rate app. If you're in the high bit rate range, you're a high bit rate app.
For my comment on this was that maybe if we just keep alternating the versions at all times, like so you send them on adjacent packets, then you don't say much about which one you're more interested in and then another one. So then I think that's the best we can do from a privacy perspective of this thing. And I think my view is that the additional cost of alternating should be low. And yeah, there are an issue where we discuss other benefits potentially of that. And then Kazuo had a question, to be precise. When we talk about alternating, do we send Tron 1 on one burst and Tron 2 on the second burst, or do we, for every burst, send both? And yeah, my comment on this is that we should be sending both on every burst. Kazuo also makes the comment that this is the overhead of doing this is negligible. It is not much overhead to send both versions. So does anyone have any comments? Kazuo, you're on the...
Hi, so I left a comment on a different issue, number 14, but I think there's still some complexity regarding the requirements, and that is that the sender has to send two types of packets, and the receiver has to receive both and do a min. So I kind of wonder if we could just let the sender always start with sending a Tron 2 packet, containing the higher bandwidth, and then let the middle boxes rewrite them to Tron V1 packet if the bit rate is low. Because if we go that route, essentially the two versions become a unified range.
Yeah.
And so I think that would be a simpler.
That's a really good idea, actually. Yeah. And that would be fine. I think the cost of rewriting the version is very low as well. So yeah, absolutely. That's a really good idea. Yeah.
Can you add that to the issue, Kazuo, so we can track it? I have a note in the minutes, but it would be cool.
I will. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Any comments on this? Someone do not agree that this is a good idea? Great. I think with that, and I think we can even do a quick PR on this prior to adoption call. I think this is a nice small addition, but it's quite profound, and I think it's really good. So I would like us to maybe Kazuo add a comment, and then we do a PR on this before we do the adoption call. That would be my take on this.
So time check. We've got like 30 minutes before I want to go on to the semantics workstream bit.
Yeah.
You would like to get to the point where we have enough information to make a call for adoption, or take a sense of the room as to whether we have enough information to make a call for adoption. I have a slight preference, chair's prerogative here, to actually have the bike shed conversation before the call for adoption, because it'd be neat to have the adopted document have the name of the protocol that we're going to use moving forward. Are there, given that we want to have time for both of those things, what do you want to talk about next? Do we want to go through the single comment issues? Do you want to take a quick scrub of these and figure out which ones you think we do need to have more conversation on before the adoption call? Or do we want to look at the PRs?
Yeah, PRs. I think the issues, most of the issues are fine to keep open.
Actually, let me turn this around to the room. Is there anyone here who believes that they need to see more about one of these issues, or need to have the issue closed before they would have an opinion on whether we should adopt this as the base for the working group document? Going once, going twice, 7 more seconds of uncomfortable silence. Cool, Marcus.
Right. So let me move to one of the major topics as well, and then I think we can go to the bike shed, and that is actually it's one of the PRs. Matt submitted this PR yesterday. It is about one of the things we discussed in Bangkok as well, and that is it would be nice to have an early indication to the network that Tron might happen on this path, and this PR consists of a proposal on how to do that. So we can look at what the proposal looks like, but pretty much we talk about that there is a Tron indication that you can send with your first packet. So we define a Tron indication packet. A Tron indication packet has a format of a Tron packet, but it is fully inverted because you're putting it at the end of a datagram, and therefore you want to you basically want to parse it from the back and forward. So basically, what the network element does is that if it sees a quick what it thinks is a first quick packet on a UDP4 tuple, it can look at the end of the datagram and then see if it sees some version field and the rate signal field that has this all ones set and etc. There's some discussions here right now whether should we call these rate signal? Do we need all these fields? Maybe what we need is something like just like a magic number there or whatnot. But the point of this PR is that we put something at the end of the first packet, or rather at the end of the first datagram that is sent by a quick client, just to indicate that to the network that there might be Tron there. And the rationale for doing this is that when you we won't go through all the text, but the rationale for doing this is that when you give this early indication, it is possible for network elements that otherwise might have done more extensive deep packet inspection to determine whether this is a flow that they are interested in. They can do this in a very, very simple way now. They can just check that this is probably a quick packet, and then look at the end. Oh, this is probably a Tron packet. I might care about receiving other Tron packets on this 5 tuple. So that's rationale behind this. We can discuss the details, but it's quite a lot of details.
So I do have like a semi-snarky clarification question.
Mm-hmm.
Like the reason, I'm assuming that when we're reversing the fields, we're not also making those little Indian at the same time, right? It's basically
no, I don't know. No, we shouldn't do that. That would be too much reversing, I think. Yeah.
But the idea here is that like it is actually you on these devices, having an array and walking backward through that array is a thing that you can do cheaply.
Yes, that's the assumption. I think we can look into the details of this. Like what one comment is that maybe we just put a sufficiently large value, put a magic number at the end, and then that would serve the same purpose.
Okay. Yeah.
Whatever.
But the idea is like, hey, here's a Tron indication. Here's what it might look like without using any more code points. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There were some discussions on I don't know, maybe they were resolved already. Like there's some guidance to senders of this. Like if you're, for instance, if you're sending quick short header packets in your first flight, make sure that you don't send them in the same datagram as the one where you contain where you send the Tron indication, because if you were to do that, you would break something. Also, initially we talk about that this is sent after the first initial, but there might be more long header packets in a first datagram, so it should be after the last long header packet in a UDP datagram that you put this one in. We will probably look a little bit more at this text and then hope to merge it. Do we have any comments on this general idea? Do you have any critique against this? Knowing that we might change how the actual indication looks like as we move forward as a working group, but does anyone not want to see this go into the protocol?
That sounds like a merge it.
Great. So we'll probably go ahead and merge this very soon then. The other PRs we have, I think they are really, really good ones. I don't think we need to merge them prior to adoption, but we can look at them quickly. This is a very important one that Christian has made. It's about various DOS attacks, or how DOS attacks can impact network elements, and some potential mitigations around that. I think this is super important. I think this is definitely something we're going to need quite a lot of text on. I'm happy. I think this looks good. I'm happy to merge it now. I'm also happy to keep it open before, but I think it's a really, really good, really good discussion, and I think it's going to be very important for like Christian mentioned. There are various ways that attackers can make use of this protocol, and especially if this starts to influence things that the network elements do and change state, then that this becomes an extremely important piece of text. So I think Christian does a good job in describing the types of attacks that can be done. There are mitigations as well, and I think we can do more work on the mitigations here as well. But I would be happy to merge this right away. I'm also happy to wait with it. I don't know if people have read this, if they have any opinions. But this is an important one.
Christian, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I mean, I'm sorry for the last snafu. I mean, somehow Firefox decided to mute the tab, whatever.
Oops.
Yeah, I think we have to be cognizant of attacks like that.
Mhm.
And as I said in the previous discussion with Marcus, we have to be careful. I mean, any kind of communication that is not authenticated should not change state. That's the basic line. I mean, and we decide for deployment reason that we don't want to have some kind of cryptographic authentication in SCONE, because that's undeployable. The result of that is that you have to be very, very careful before you try to change state based on packets that can be spoofed by everybody. And so it's better to have that in the document, if only as a reminder that people should stay sober and don't try to construct a house of cards on these kind of foundations.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I think we this is good text, and we can expand on this topic in this section here.
And yeah, there are mitigation. Yes, I mean, if you know that the other guy has announced that he supports SCONE, then it becomes more believable. But even so, if you are to the point where you have like 50% of the endpoint that supports SCONE, then it's not much of a mitigation. Yeah.
Yep. Good. My view is that I can merge this now. I think we will revisit this topic a lot. This is a good starting point.
I think it's good to have it in there to remind us in the document
Yes.
text that we should continue that discussion. So
Exactly. The other PR also from Christian is around interaction between congestion control and Tron, and I think this is a great discussion. I think this is also a long-lived discussion. I'm like, we don't need to resolve this now for adoption. That's my view. I think we definitely need to discuss how this relates. Is extremely important, because it is something that will be easy to conflate what we're doing here otherwise. So not sure we need to merge this particular text prior to the adoption call, though.
Yeah, I was actually asked to prepare that text during the last meeting.
Okay.
So, because we had that discussion back in where was the IETF meeting again? In
Bangkok.
Yes, it was in my office all the time, but but yeah, I mean, and I think we need to have some clarity there from the beginning. In particular, I mean, I did some point about ECN. I mean, there is a general trend in the IETF of in the congestion control working group and places like that to say, hey, we should really do ECN because that's the way you signal instant variation of the network to the endpoint. So it's important to have some discussion there about the relation between the two.
Yeah, I fully agree. This is very, very important. And okay, yeah, we can have some text that goes into the first version, and then we'll keep revisiting this. I mean, maybe like Brian said with the previous issue, this is a good reminder for us that this is that we need to work on it.
Yeah, and if people have better idea, I mean, look, I mean, I wrote that text, and I'm happy that people change it.
Yep, makes sense. Yeah, let's unless we hear otherwise, I'm fine. We can work on merging this in for now and for the first.
Okay.
Corey.
Hi, just chiming in here to try and figure out what we're actually thinking about. I mean, to me, the congestion control piece is something that should be quite separate to this.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to. So, is it a one? I know we need text, but I'm unsure what we need to say apart from it's separate.
To me, that's the most important thing that we need to say. It has to be crystal clear for this document that it is separate. Then we can discuss more things, nuances about that. But
yeah, sure. I mean, and I guess there are nuances because you're going to do rate changes based on what you see. And if you do CWV or whatever else, you're going to track those rate changes. That's going to change your congestion state, etc. But it all seems to just be that you choose to use a lower rate than you could use. And yeah, okay, right. I'm waffling, so I think we agreed. It's okay. Let's see the text.
So I think there's two things that we could do here. One is like following Kazuho's point, we basically merge the first paragraph and keep this as an open issue. One is that we don't do a merge before adoption, because there does seem to be that we would have to have more discussion about this on a adopted doc. I would just throw that out there as a suggestion. No authority, no hat.
Yeah.
Christian, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I see. I mean, I'm reading the text again in light of Casio's comment, and yes, I mean the paragraph that Casio mentioned are the one that are factual. The other one are more speculative, and we could basically copy the text in the issue or have a setting issue on that kind of stuff. Yes,
I think that we.
And I agree with Gory that basically any kind of link there is very loose, but it is a fact that people will, if endpoint says, hey, I'm told I can do 20 megabits, someone is going to plug the 20 megabits in their congestion controller somehow. I mean, that's a fact. It's going to happen. So, yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, let's take the resolution that we agree with Kazuo's comment, and I'll move the rest of the text out of the PR and put that in the text of the issue so that
Excellent.
we don't lose it.
So you will take care of that on for the GitHub accounting. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. That sounds like a great way to resolve this. I think then basically we are back to. I think this was the things we did. Now we can go to the bike shed. Do we want to call this like now is the chance to do something. Do we want to call this Tron? What does Tron mean? We have a name here: transparent rate optimization for network endpoints. That's just trying to fit something in. Is this does anyone care about this at all? Just let's get this out of the way.
So I have a question. Why is SCONE not in this list?
Oh, it's a great question. We can call it SCONE as well. It was because the previous protocol, because it was a merger between SCONE and Train. Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
I mean, I think I was the one who like suggested Tron, right? More as a joke than anything else. But I don't know. Like, I know that we have a long history of like half of the working groups in the IETF develop a protocol that's not named after the working group that was named after the protocol that they wanted to develop. So, like, I just wanted to put that out there.
There is very much value in actually calling it SCONE, because I already have very confusing conversations internally about SCONE and Tron and what SCONE and Tron is, and etc. So yeah, actually that's a very good point.
So I don't know, are there any, like, I think the people who would be hold on, sorry Christian, I'm going to mute you. The people who would be would have the most sort of skin in this question are like, would the original proponents of SCONE be annoyed if we called this mostly Train protocol SCONE?
Not at all. I don't know.
Proponents of SCONE here? I mean, yes, some of you are.
And Matt is here as well. I don't think Matt would care, but I will let him answer.
I do not care. It's hard to say how much I don't care about that.
Okay, cool.
Really.
So like, do we just want to call it SCONE and make everyone's life easier by only having one name?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does anyone else want to discuss that?
Well, Martin Thompson might care. He's not here. I don't know how much he cares. But I should probably ask him.
Yes. That is a good point. So, but we can take that offline. He's not here.
Yeah, that's what I think as well. I mean, I'm reluctant. I mean, I don't mind, but I'm reluctant to say yes without having Martin.
Okay. That is perfectly reasonable.
Seems like an ideal thing for a poll, though. Once you figure out what's good. And I like Kazuho's comment. We should have something edible.
Yep. I mean, like, you can eat a train if you do it wrong enough. I think that there's 19 of us in the room. Martin Thompson isn't here. I think this is actually something to take to the list. I can do that. Nobody's saying anything, so I will send a message to the list. Should I ping Martin Thompson first? Should probably ping Martin Thompson first. I will take care of this because I'm the one who said we wanted to talk about the bike shed. So, so that means that I have this as an action item. Is that going to work? Yes, I will have access to my IETF email over the next couple of weeks. So, good. I will take that on.
Cool.
So with that, I think that takes us to the sense of the room on adopting, the next rev of this document as a working group document, right? Like, so like get a sense, like this is not an adoption call. Obviously that happens on the list. We'll make the actual adoption call on like after the document with the merged PRs has been like submitted, right? Like, so that actually has to happen on the data tracker. But I think what I want to do now, via show of hands, the like pre-call for adoption, and then like, so people who have a no here, I will ask you to jump in the queue and like explain why, right? Like, so we do want to have a discussion to make sure that we get good feedback on what we need to get this to be adoptable. So I just need to finish typing that. So do you support the present document as the basis for a working group protocol draft? Yes, no, no opinion. The show of hands is open now. $13 of 17, going once, going twice. For the record, 13 yes, no, 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 no opinion. Well, I guess that's 17 of 4. That's like 4 implicit no opinions, but cool. Thank you all very much. Are there any other, does anyone have any other business with respect to Trone, maybe soon to be SCONE? Or shall we go ahead and bring up Sanjay? Dan.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button.
Okay.
I think the part about adopting the Trone as a starting point is very very useful. I'm glad that there's support. The one part that I think I mentioned it in Bangkok is missing some of the details that have been sprinkled around different proposals. In particular, I think the measurements, the definition of what actually is the advice is going to be critical. So I hope by adopting this, we're also going to be rolling in some of the missing pieces into the protocol. Like I said, the session data rate aspect is actually going to be critical because we want to make sure that people are able to measure on the network side as well as on the endpoint side what is being advised. And I think we got a start in that proposal that I presented, the one of the interims. So I think what I'm trying to say is that just the protocol itself is missing some of the pieces that will be necessary in the specification. So I hope that doesn't get lost. Thank you.
So yes, so once the document is adopted, it is under working group change control. There is also the semantics work stream, and we would expect that some of the work that comes out of the semantic work stream would be able to feed back into the protocol. Obviously, there are practicability aspects, deployability aspects, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But yes, that will not be lost. With that, Sanjay, can we ask you to come up a few minutes early?
Sure.
Do you want to control the slides?
Yeah.
You should be able to ask for that. Should be down at the, oh, I can actually just straight up pass you slides control. You don't have to ask.
Okay. It says search your slides. Oh, okay. There it is. Thank you.
Cool, take it away.
All right, so let's go to the next slide. So we submitted version 01 and added 2 more authors, co-authors to the document. Zahid, who's not here on this interim call today, is one, and then Kuram Abbas, who's here on the call, is here, joined as the co-authors. We also made changes in requirements based on the feedback during the IETF 122, and also some responses we got on the GitHub. And then other changes in 01 are just editorial throughout the document. So here's the kind of quick and dirty look on what changed in version 01 in terms of the requirements. So the requirements mostly stay the same, but I think the meaning they convey sort of has changed. So the first requirement that we had, and as you can see, I would just want to comment on the question that you were asking about the changing the name. And this slide is probably a good example of why we should stick with one name and change the name. And maybe SCONE, because we are all over the place. SCONE protocols, Tron packet, Tron signal, Tron protocol. So I think we are all over the place. So I think one name would really help us as well. And it'll hopefully make the reading easier. So anyway, the first requirement we changed to a must, SCONE protocol. And we set SCONE protocols, assuming that if there's more than one option on the table. So I don't know where we are with that. So we just went with the generic that SCONE protocols must be client initiated. And I think this sort of corresponds with the issue number 5 that I raised on the GitHub, and the Strawman 23 that PR sort of is aligned with this requirement. Essentially, all it's saying is that the Tron protocol must be client initiated, so that network can detect that and then use that as a way to know that this is a Tron compliant packet or the session. The second requirement we have completely struck out, as we realized that the whole Tron protocol is kind of doing exactly what we were saying needs to be done, and we had a should there. So first of all, it didn't really matter, and then the whole Tron protocol is exactly doing that part. So I thought this was completely redundant for us to call out that UPF and P-gateway should send throughput advice. If we receive a Tron packet and if the network is capable, then it'll automatically do that. So we just took that out. The third requirement is, so this is the one we talked about in earlier as Marcus was presenting. This is about the client endpoint sending an ACK. So we started with should initially in version 0, and then Renji recommended that this would be a must, and we went through iteration of messages on GitHub, on the SCONE GitHub as well as my own GitHub. So for now, we stuck with May because this is a little bit more watered down, I guess, in that sense. So it's not a should. It's definitely was not a must. It's not a should. It's a May, and I know we still haven't really closed on it. So I'm going to keep this one open. There are some points that it might help the network to know that its advisory signal has been received, so that it can give time that it needs to give, the time window to make sure that the client is compliant and it does not start to throttle. At least that was the reason behind it. But we're sort of flexible about where the working group ends up on this one. Then the next one is SCONE. SCONE signaling must not require changes to CSP. So this has not changed. We pretty much said this from before, that all the work that we are seeing right now with Tron protocol and what network does today, we're not asking to change anything in how CSP determines its video policy. So that remains transparent. The following one on the dynamic update, that hasn't changed also. The only question I have here is that this requirement is not saying that network needs to create a own Tron packet and send it. The question really, the gist really is that if for reasons where the client endpoint session goes up, for example, from a 4G to a 5G, or vice versa, then there needs to be a way for network to signal that change in throughput advice. So we're not saying that the network needs to create a thrown packet, but I think the idea is that if all it's saying is that we need to be able to update the advisory throughput based on changes into the network or subscriber plans and things like that. So that really is. So I do want to prompt Marcus to jump in, because I want to make sure that your number 20, we're not confusing your PR 21, which is saying that the network that the ask is for the network to create a thrown packet, because that's not the idea here. The idea is to be able to update or send a new advisory throughput. So Marcus, I'd like to hear from you, just to be clear that what we are saying and what you are responding to.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think issue 21 talks about what we should say about the capability of generating network generated advice. And there are multiple resolutions to. I mean, I fully agree, and I think that the protocol should allow for changes to policies, and that doesn't necessarily require that the network generate its own packets. It's just be guidance on having like a sufficiently timely transmission of thrown packets from the endpoints. And yeah, so I agree with you. Yeah. We don't need to point a specific design in this requirement. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And so I think we need to number the requirements. Bullet points is not a best way to go through the list. And we should do that in the version 2 of the draft also. The second from the bottom last is applications may self-adapt to the video flow max bitrate. So we had a should there. Should we thought was more stronger, and network is going to send the advice, and it's up to the client to use it or ignore it. So we thought may would be a better way to convey that idea than asking should. It's really up to the endpoint to decide what they want to do with it. So that's a may there. And then the last one is not really any change, and we were just completely confused whether we need to call SCONE signal or SCONE protocol or thrown protocol or thrown signal. So we are all over the place there. But really the gist of the message is still the same, that the SCONE signal must be supported, must be extensible beyond the 4G and 5G network. So not a lot of change there, but still the meaning of the requirements does change. And if there are additional requirements, then obviously we will add that and also invite other people to chime in on anything that they think is valuable to add. Let's see. Yeah, this is, we kind of covered this issue in depth. And Renji, I apologize, I fat-fingered the name here, so my spelling, my bad. It's really, I was just trying to bring up your point that why the ACK is a critical part of it. And Dan's point was also good. We've already covered that, so I don't think we need to go into more details here. I was just trying to capture some of the conversation that occurred within my personal GitHub. There's also issue number 2 that Zahid has raised, and that is should we add more details on RAN part regarding the RAN information that could be gathered in the core network. So we have left this one open because we're not really at this point addressing anything as it relates to congestion. But if there is a 3GPP interface that provides for RAN to provide some information back to the UPF or P gateway, then in future that could be something that we can consider to add into the requirements. But I just wanted to make sure that I captured that here. All right, next slide. This is, again, someone that's not very familiar with the UPF and P gateway. We're really just trying to recap some of those points that UPF and PDN gateway is the 3GPP on-path network element. It's between the UE and the RAN and the internet. So it's the most important piece for carrying the signal. It has access to subscriber policy. Again, we have the 3GPP standard interfaces. And the idea is that UPF and Packet Gateway can provide the path for Tron signal to carry the IP tuples between the endpoints. And the endpoints, the PDU session is what will be carrying that Tron signal. Just really at a high level recap of what UPF and P Gateway is. And then last slide, that there's a IPR disclosure on something which is out of band API interface to provide the maximum bit rate. So there's a patent Verizon has filed. So just wanted to make sure that there's an IPR disclosure on that. And with that, I have the last slide. And the question really is that, is the working group interested in using this document as a starter for applicability and manageability document? That's the question. And I guess that's the question for the chair. And then it's a personal GitHub right now where you can enter your comments or anything that you have that you want to comment to. Hey, Marcus.
Yeah, I think it's useful right now to that we keep track on these requirements to guide us to see that we're working towards something that we agree on. I'm not sure that, you know, for a document that we publish as an RFC, that these requirements is something we need to, like, once we have done the protocol, these requirements should be satisfied, right? So I'm not sure those requirements fulfill a value as a published RFC, but yeah, I think there's a lot of text here about certain network deployments and so on, and that's probably useful for an applicability document. But yeah, and I think currently, as we're progressing the document, it's good to keep this document alive and you know, discuss the requirements. But I am not sure that the requirements need to be part of such a published document later.
Okay.
Are there other comments on this document, or does anyone want to speak to starter for applicability and manageability? So I see in the chat from Michael Richardson, adopt, maintain, don't plan to publish. Christian.
Yeah, I mean, I am with Marcus on this. I mean, I don't think that we have to have a standard document that is specific about that, because what that document does is outline issues that they call requirement that should be satisfied by the protocol. And then I think those issues should be debated, like we are debating the period of the enforcement and things like that. Those issues should be debated so that we get them in the final protocol. I don't think we should have a separate issue document that is kind of standing watch over the protocol. I think that's otherwise they diverge and we have. I would rather not have that as an independent document in the working group.
So, like, could I rephrase that point as the requirements that are here should probably each show up as issues on the protocol document? Is that
yes?
Okay.
Yes. And have the discussion there issue by issue, because they are all trade-offs. I mean, so there are always trade-offs between what we desire, which we can call requirement, and what we can do, which is basically the final consensus we get. So I think that's a proper way to handle that.
So I think the intent really. So I get your point, Christian. The important thing is that we didn't start with any requirements, right? There was a protocol work, but the question was network element. So I think one other part that this document is addressing is that defining what that network element is and going into the details, providing the use case. So I think that is still meaningful. The requirements were added because we were operating without any very clear guidance. And from the network point of view, what were some of the basic requirements that should be considered in order for the network to be able to understand drone. So that was the meaning. But I think eventually, if the requirements that are laid out here are met, it is still not redundant. It still is. I see other working groups where there's a requirements document and then there's a protocol document. So I've seen other working groups that have done that. So we can debate that, but I think the idea was to make sure that these are the requirements and there's a protocol that basically is aligning with those requirements. Especially because from a network point of view, we need to call out what the network is capable of and what network can do, and is the protocol that is being designed, is that meeting up to those requirements that the network has to manage?
No, that's where we differ. That's explicitly where we differ. What happens if the protocol doesn't meet the requirements? Do we update the requirements or do we have to still update the protocol?
So I think there are at least 3 requirements that we have here. There's a common thread on actually most of them that protocol is aligning with. The 3, at least the 2 requirements, if I go back for a minute here, if we look at this requirement, so this is, I had to raise a issue in GitHub in order to have this into the discussions, which is what you have now as strawman number 23. So if this requirement wasn't there, yeah, I could have worked on the PR, but this actually led to what you have as PR 23. And then if you look at the dynamic update, this has led to discussions on PR 21.
No, take the example of dynamic update. That's something that we really, really want to discuss in the document because there are all kinds of trade-offs. But I mean, the problem is that if you have 2 separate documents, you end up having 2 authorities. And so it doesn't make a whole lot of, it's not practical.
Fair enough. So I'm okay with, if eventually the requirements have to be stricken out, that's fine. But I think until the point that there's a good balance between what the network expects and is the protocol supporting that, as long as we can have that discussion, and if that balance is achieved, then these requirements can come out of this document and it can focus more on the use case and applicability and other aspects of manageability.
So I think what I'm hearing is a desire to have all of those requirements tracked as issues on GitHub on the merge document, which allows us then to have the discussion there as opposed to having so you have the initial description, that's the requirement, there's the discussion, then there's a record of the resolution. We take that comes back out to the mailing list. That the rest of this document, I'm from a managing the issue standpoint, I'm broadly sympathetic to the split horizon problem. Then there's the rest of this document, which does seem like a basis for an applicability document. But given that we spent most of our time talking the requirements here, I think we want to bring the document without the requirements back to bring that question in the future. Dan, you're in the queue. And are muted.
Yeah, thank you. I hit the same button. Somehow it's acting weird. No, I think you just hit it on the nail, Brian, because I gave Sanjay my feedback. I think the document is very useful, and it was a combination of requirements and applicability scenarios. Even if we do add some of the requirements in the applicability, I think the value of adopting the part about the mobile networks, which is the primary use case for SCONE, it's going to be tremendously valuable. So as you said, I think basically looking at this from two different angles will make a lot of sense. And that's not saying that the applicability document may not have requirements, but they may be specific to the applicability aspects, not to the protocol. And the protocol ones maybe, as people suggested, to go and be debated on the issues. But I do support, getting started on this, especially for mobile networks.
So yeah, I think when this document was initially submitted, we did not have sort of we didn't have the infrastructure around the combined draft for like, hey, here is now an open place where we can track issues on this, and now we do. So Sanjay, could you take for right now an action to make sure that all of the current requirements have at least an issue filed against them on the protocol document, and we can track it that way, and then we can leave the disposition of this document for later. But I do think I did hear a signal of, hey, the applicability stuff is super useful, and we do want to have that. We do want to put that document out. Could you rework this so that we can, take that question separate from the requirements within this document?
Yep, I can do that.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much. And with that, we are 1 minute over. We did not have a chance to discuss whether or not we need the next interim. However, the fact that we are 1 minute over is an indication to me that we should not cancel it. We will follow up in GitHub and on the list. Y'all have fun in 2 weeks. I will be completely offline. Actually, my vacation now starts in about 30 minutes. So I will see you 2 interims for now. Jin will be able to chair the next meeting. I'm hoping that the internet situation for him is better next time. Thanks a lot for a very productive meeting. And I will see you 2 interims from now.